I've presided over a lot of things in my years leading the Iron Covenant. Funerals, fistfights, the kind of quiet justice that never makes a newspaper. But the one I think about most, the one I still turn over on long night rides when highway goes straight and dark, happened on a Saturday in June, in a little Missouri River town called Harlow's Bend, at a church with a white clapboard steeple and a broken front step. I wasn't supposed to be there. None of us were. We were passing through on our way back from the chapter rally in Springfield. 48 of us, maybe, strung out along Route 61 in the morning heat. We pulled into the gas and go on the edge of town for fuel and coffee, and that's when Terrence, our VP, a man not given to alarm, walked over to me with a look I didn't like. "President," he said, "come see this." He walked me around the side of the building. There was a girl in a wedding dress sitting on the concrete curb, back against the cinder block wall, knees pulled up to her chest as much as the dress would allow. She was young, maybe 23. The dress was ivory, simple, the kind that costs more than it looks. Her veil was gone. Her dark hair had come half loose from whatever pins had been holding it. She wasn't crying. That was the thing that stopped me. She had gone somewhere past crying, to that flat, empty country on the other side of it. Terrence told me what the attendant had said. The church was 4 blocks north. The ceremony had been scheduled for 10 o'clock that morning. It was nearly 11:30 now. I walked over and crouched down so I wasn't looming. I've learned that. A big man in leather. You crouch down or you're just another wall. "Miss," I said, "you need something." She looked at me for a long moment. Her eyes were brown and dry and very still. Then she looked back at her hands in her lap. "My flowers," she said. "I forgot my flowers inside the church. I can't go back in there to get them." I didn't ask why. I waited. She told me in pieces, the way people do when the telling is hard. Not all at once, but in fragments, with long silences in between that I did not try to fill. Her name wasn't important. What was important was this. The man she'd been set to marry had a family, and his family had expectations. And when she had told them 3 days before the wedding that she wasn't going to sign the paper they'd drawn up, the one that put her name off the deed to the house she'd lived in for 2 years, the one she'd painted and repaired and made into something with her own 2 hands, and the inheritance from her mother that she never talked about. They had made clear what would happen if she walked away, not in a courtroom way. In the other way, she had gone to church anyway because she loved him and she thought he would choose her over them. He was a decent man, or she had believed him to be. That's the cruelest kind of wrong. The kind you didn't see coming from someone whose hands you knew. He hadn't chosen her. He'd stood at the altar with his jaw set and his eyes somewhere past her shoulder while his uncle, a wide man in a gray suit with a face like poured concrete, positioned himself in the doorway behind her, and she had understood then exactly what she was standing inside of. Not a wedding, a closing. She'd walked out the side door into the alley. She'd walked 4 blocks in wedding heels to the first place she saw that had other people in it, because all she knew was that she needed witnesses around her. People who would notice if something happened, strangers who could at least confirm she had existed that morning. I stood up. My knees cracked. She didn't look up. "What kind of flowers were they?" I asked. She blinked. "What? Your bouquet. What flowers?" A pause. "White ranunculus," she said like it cost her something. "And some kind of little blue ones. I don't remember the name." "Scabiosa," said Terrence, behind me. We both looked at him. He shrugged. "My mother grew them." I turned back to the girl. "You stay right here. Don't go anywhere. You understand me?" She nodded once, slow. I walked back to the pumps. Here is what I knew by then. I knew the uncle in the gray suit, not personally, but I knew the name his family ran in that county. The construction contracts, the county commissioner in their pocket, the way certain complaints disappeared from certain desks. I knew that type of weight the way you know weather. You feel it before you see it. And I knew that a girl in a wedding dress, sitting alone on a gas station curb, had already used up most of the courage she had just getting there, and that if I left her alone now, the next 4 hours would end somewhere she would not recover from easily. I got on my radio. It took me 11 minutes to raise the other chapters. We had the Mid-Surrey chapter 40 minutes out. We had the River Bluffs boys an hour south. I put out the call to both, and I told them what I needed. Then I walked back to where the girl was sitting, and I sat down on the curb next to her, which is not something a 58-year-old man does gracefully, and I waited with her. She didn't say much. I didn't push. At some point, she asked me how long I'd been riding. 40 years, I said. Do you like it? It's the only thing that feels like going anywhere, I said. She thought about that. I thought about my wife, Carolyn, who died in this same month 14 years ago in this same kind of June heat, and who never got the anniversary trip we'd talked about for 20 years. I didn't say any of that. I just sat there on the curb while the sun climbed and the traffic on Route 61 went by, and I kept the girl company in the way I knew how, which was mostly by being present and not requiring anything from her. Around 12:30, she said, "They're going to come looking for me." "I know," I said. "The uncle, he won't just leave it." She looked at the road. A pickup went by, a county road truck, nothing threatening in any of it. But she tracked each one the way a person tracks things, when they know what looking over their shoulder means. He's not the kind of man who accepts someone just walking away. I know that too. She looked at me for the first time without that flat emptiness in her eyes. There was something else there now, not hopes exactly, more like the question that comes before hope, the one that asks whether hope is even allowed. "What are you going to do?" she asked. I heard the sound then, distant, like the first edge of a summer storm, a low, rolling thunder that had nothing to do with the sky. She heard it too. I watched her face as she placed it. Motorcycles. Not one or two, not a dozen. The sound had body to it, had mass. The way a river in flood has mass. You feel it before you understand it. Terrence stepped up beside me. "Mid-Missouri just turned onto Route 61, he said. "River Bluffs are 10 minutes behind them." I looked at the girl. "That's for you." Her lips parted. Nothing came out. The first riders came into view around the curve a quarter-mile out. A long, dark line of chrome and leather in the summer haze, headlights burning in the daylight. They came in slowly, deliberately, not fast, the way something sure of itself moves. They filled the road. They filled the shoulder. They turned into the gas-and-go lot and kept coming until the lot was full, and then they lined up along the road frontage and kept coming still. 150 riders, give or take. I didn't count them that day. I have never needed to count them to know what they mean. The girl made a sound beside me, small, pressed back down almost immediately. Her hand found the edge of my vest and held on. Across the street, I could see the gray-suited uncle's car. It had been parked there for 20 minutes. It was still there. Now it started, very slowly, and pulled out the far end of the parking lot and turned away down Route 61 and did not come back. I didn't watch it go. I was watching her watch the riders, the Mid-Missouri president, a big man named Walt, though I won't say more than that, came and crouched in front of her the same way I had. And he held out a hand, and she looked at it for a moment, and then she shook it. "You need anything handled," Walt said. "You say the word." "The house," she said. Her voice was steadier than I expected. "I just want my house." Walt nodded, once, like that was already decided. "We'll make some phone calls this afternoon. The county commissioner's office tends to be more accommodating when they have a parking lot full of concerned constituents." She laughed. It came out of her like something that had been locked in a closet, small and startled and real. We stayed in Harlow's Bend for 6 hours that day. 48 of us turned into 150, and we filled the diner on Sycamore Street for lunch, and we left tips that the waitresses talked about for a year. 2 of our men, both of whom happened to have backgrounds in contract law, sat with the girl at a corner table for 2 hours while she went through the paperwork on her house. By 4 o'clock, she had the name of a real estate attorney in Springfield who owed someone a favor, and a document signed and witnessed that the family's lawyers were going to have a disagreeable time trying to contest. Outside, the block had its own quiet life. Riders sat on steps and leaned against fenders, drank coffee from paper cups, talked low about nothing important. The diner owner, a stout man named Hollis, who'd been watching all of this through his front window with an expression that moved slowly from alarm to something like awe, came out at 3 o'clock and brought a tray of sweet tea without anyone asking. He stood on the sidewalk and looked at the street, at the long dark line of bikes, and he shook his head once. "Never seen anything like this," he said to Terrence. "Most towns haven't," Terrence said. "I found her flowers, eventually. One of the younger riders had gone into the church. The uncle's car being gone, the building was empty. And found them on the altar steps, mostly unharmed, white ranunculus and small blue scabiosa, a little wilted in the heat. He brought them to her outside the diner. She held them for a long time without speaking. "I thought I was going to have to throw them," she said. "Well," he said, "now you don't have to decide." She looked at the bouquet. Then she looked at the street, at the long rows of bikes catching the afternoon light, at the men sitting on fenders and stone walls and diner steps, talking, laughing low, being the ordinary human things as they were when the job was done. Why? She asked me. She wasn't asking about the flowers anymore. I thought about it. I thought about the right answer, the tidy answer, the one that explained the code, or the brotherhood, or the guardian angel mythology that people like to put on us, like a costume we put on and take off. I didn't give her any of that. Carolyn would have wanted someone to sit with her, I said. If it had been her, she didn't ask who Carolyn was. She understood the shape of the sentence well enough. She nodded, slowly, and held her wilted flowers. And the afternoon light moved golden across the front of the diner, and somewhere down the block, two of our riders were arguing pleasantly about the best route back to Springfield, and it was, in its quiet way, a perfectly ordinary June afternoon. We rolled out of Harlow's Bend at 6 o'clock. She stood outside the diner and watched us go, bouquet still in her hands, the same ivory dress, the veil still gone, but the hair settled now, something in her face that had not been there when I found her on the curb. Not the happiness she'd been promised that morning. Something else. Something that comes after you find out what you're made of, after you find out that the world still has people in it, who will sit beside you on a concrete curb for no reason but that you needed somebody there. I raised one hand as I passed her. She raised the bouquet. The last thing I saw in my mirror before the curve took the town away was her standing on the sidewalk, a girl in an ivory dress with a wilting handful of white and blue flowers, surrounded by nothing but the settling dust of 150 departing motorcycles, already turning to go back inside and start the next part of her life. Some days you ride toward something. Some days you just ride through a town, and the town needs you and you stay. That's the whole of it. That's all it ever is.